to bring up some sharing with you. What I'd like to do with you is I'm going to bring up some of the very first things we looked at when we came into our Enneagram class, and see if for those of you who've been in the class, or for anybody who wasn't through all of it, if these little pictures have any new meaning to you than the first time you saw them. So we're going to look at the dinner party. Remember the dinner party? So let's see what here we go. Here comes the dinner party with the 9 personalities. So here's our first one. Can you see that okay? Is everybody okay? Can you see it okay, everybody?
Yep.
Good. All right. So with that in mind, there we go. Let's look at the number 1. Anyone, when we think about the number 1, before the dinner party, the number 1 is going to say, I hope I'm bringing the appropriate wine. Remember what the energy of the 1 is? Perfection. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Number 2 says, I hope my friends will all like each other. And number 3 says, I hope to do a lot of networking tonight. And number 4, I'm not in the mood for a party. 5 says, I wish I could stay home with my, I don't know how to say that.
Lepidoptera.
I knew you'd be there for that, Nance.
Being a number 5, I don't think that's accurate. I would take my Lepidoptera book with me.
Yes, I know you would.
That's probably more accurate. Well, as we said, there's many expressions of that 5, aren't there? So I must remember, number 6, I must remember to feed the cat and lock up. Number 7, if it isn't a fun group, I have other things in mind. And number 8, I'm out of there if there isn't good wine, women, and song. Yeah. And number 9, I feel so good if I can make a nice connection. I'll feel so good if I can make a nice connection tonight.
You know what I just noticed is the reflection of each type in the mirror. See how it changes?
Ah, yeah.
Like number 5.
Oh, yeah.
Like number 5, just the eyes. And then it was 7, is it, or 8, where you see all this chest hair. Those are funny.
There you go. So that's before. Now we have to go to the dinner party. Are you ready to go to the dinner party now?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now let's go to the dinner party and see what we think about who we were at the dinner party. All right, here we go. Okay, here we go. Can you see it okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right, good. So let's start with number 9, because number 9s throughout this whole class have had to wait to the very last to hear anything about themselves. So we're going to start with 9 now. And number 9 says, I feel so close to everybody. And number 1 says, not enough food groups represented here. And number 2 says, it's so great to feel needed. As you can see, number 2's got the bolt put on the table, right? Number 3 says, I need to eat and run. I'm swamped. And 4 says, cheap caviar, shocking. And 5 says, it's a talkative group. Good, that gets me off the hook. 6, she's leaving early. Doesn't she like us? Number 7, first I'll eat, then take some pictures, and then go to my class, and number 8, pass it down, pass it all down here. So having heard, does any of this kind of strike you a little different than the first time you heard it now? Maybe a little?
It does for me. I can see it a little clearer now that we went through it.
Yeah.
And today I'm having the off 9 day, so the stress 9 day, and I can't get out of my own way.
Isn't that a good time? I'm sorry, Roger. We're glad you're here. I'm actually having a rather rough 8 day myself. Poor Diane has been a victim of it today.
Oh,
Okay. All right. All right. Are you ready for after the party now? Does anybody want to say anything else about the party itself? All righty then. Here we go. Now we're going to go to after the party. So here we go after the dinner party. Can you see all right now?
yes.
Good. All right. So number 1 comes home from the dinner party and says, I hope I didn't offend George with that remark. Number 2 says, I'm so exhausted, but I'm glad people had a good time. 3, I didn't make contacts at the dinner, but I made up for it at the fundraiser later. 4, the conversation was so mundane. 5, I'm glad I left early so I could read my book. 6, it feels great to be safe at home. 7, Harry's still out having fun. 8, I sure clobbered them with that debate tonight. Look at the chest of the 8. And 9, I'm glad they liked my story. So having seen those different slices of each personality, I thought the next thing that we would do is I took from the Wagle book the first page of each personality and I put it in, I combined them all for us to look at tonight, because I thought for our last night together, we would take each personality and say, you know, and talk a little bit about what we discovered as we studied them. Like I said, we all know this is a long journey when it comes to recognizing your personality style, and that it's about being able to see both your gifts and the blocks so that you can let go, you can see the patterns, and you can begin to let go of things so that you can let more and more of that beautiful person that Noni read about, that who we are out into the joyful world. So I'm going to bring up this little piece that I put together tonight for us. And I just thought as a review, we would share this. And then after we get done sharing this, we're going to talk about what our next steps can be for our work with the Enneagram if we'd like to continue in a particular way. Okay. So let's see. So let's start with the personality style 1, and we're going to look at if anybody, we'll talk about, does anyone sense themselves to be the 1, or does anyone sense as we've noticed, we have many traits within us, and we move back and forth. So let's talk a little bit about what we see in the one in this little snapshot, what we discovered and what we listened to, and how it affects us to know this. So here we go. Is that a good size? Okay. So the number one is called the perfectionist, the personality style that you might lean towards from the time you were little. Although we have all the personalities in us, that's why we can all understand. It's really good to understand this. This might have been the one that you built the facade to keep yourself safe with and to get what you needed to survive. So Jimmy Hoffa was a number one. I may have faults, but being wrong ain't one of them. Ones are motivated by the need to live their life the right way, including improving themselves and the world around them. At their best, they are ethical, reliable, productive, wise, idealistic, fair, honest, orderly, and self-disciplined. At their most stressed, I like that word better than worst. They can be judgmental, inflexible, dogmatic, obsessive compulsive, critical of others, overly serious, controlling, anxious, and jealous. What would you say about yourself? Does anyone here feel like they have any of those traits in them? Does anyone feel like they lean a little bit on that perfectionist of wanting to have the best rules? I mean, remember, this is all done out of love. The way we are is out of love. And so the one out of love wants to make sure we follow the rules so everyone will be okay. That's the deal of the one. Gets a little haywire, like all of us. And I'm wondering, what does anybody have to say about the one at the end of our class?
Is
Well-
anyone of our group a one? I mean,
Well, the thing is that I couldn't decide between a 1 and a 5 for myself, because if you look at these lists, I score 100%. But when it comes to rules, I think there's a difference between being ethical and being rule bound. And I'm perfectly willing to break rules when breaking them is the right thing to do. You see what I mean?
Mhm.
And I think that in my case, I have strong 1 tendencies, but I'm really a 5, because a 5 and a 1 can overlap a lot in terms of being idealistic. And in the case of the 5, how the 5 uses their knowledge, that the 5 can be very jealous of their knowledge and protective, or they can be very outgoing and constructive with it. And if they're constructive, that fits wanting to live their life the right way, including improving themselves and the world around them. So I think it's possible to be a 5 and be a lot like this list.
I think so. And I think you're making a really good point, Nancy, from the direction of we all have, first off, we have all 9 expressions within us. That's the whole and the beauty of the universe. And that's what makes us all universally connected to each other that we do. But if you went back and looked at the test that you took, and we're going to talk about retesting at the end of the class, if you went back and looked at your test, you would find that you had a number of different, like Nancy's talking about, you had a number of different personality styles that you scored high in. It wasn't just, that's part of the dilemma of figuring out which one is really the one that I need to focus on, specifically to see my patterns and to be able to grow. But the fact of the matter is we have gifts and struggles with other personality styles as well. So more than many of us could have a very high number in 1 and not be 1, but that means that we react in the world with that, with a measure that personality style, a high measure of that personality style. So does anyone notice in their lives that they may not be a one, but they may have a high tendency towards some of the one reaction to the world?
What I found in the group is that when I'm stressed, I tend to go to the worst side of the one. And when spiritually fit, let's say, I tend toward the positive side of an 8. So I get to see a little more why these things happen to me now, why they were so intertwined.
Yeah. Yes, that's an excellent point, Roger. That's a really excellent point. So we can see that, and that's really good, because then what we can do when we're working with the Enneagram, when we can see that we have higher numbers, and if we notice whether we're going to the positive side or the negative side, if we're going to the positive side of a personality type, we can increase that. And when we go to a negative side, we can look at it and we can say, well, what would be the reverse of that? And move towards it. Obviously with the help of God, because we're not going to do this alone. Does anyone else have anything that they want to say about the one?
I think I have a one wing. I'm definitely a 9. Everything that came up is I'm a 9.
Yep.
But I think maybe a wing or something is on the one side, especially when I was working.
Uh-huh.
I was, productive and fair with the staff that were there, and a lot of the tendencies, the good tendencies of the one, I kind of functioned with. Probably less now that I'm not working, but the one tendency is definitely comes out sometimes.
Yeah. Excellent. Anything else anybody want to say before we move on?
I was thinking similarly that at different times in our lives, we tend toward one versus another. And I can echo what Kathy was saying when I was working.
Yeah. You might also notice it though. I mean, frankly, neither one of you have stopped working. You just stopped getting paid for your work.
Yeah.
So I'm sure those tendencies are still kicking in. But I know myself, I have a high amount of one, and the thing that happens to me, especially when I am stressed, and I can sure see a lot of that these days, is I can get super overly serious and super controlling. It's not pretty. It's not a pretty picture. I got to get up every morning and say, help me, Jesus, help me, Jesus. So I know that on the other side of the good side of the one, I want to be these things. I want to be ethical and reliable and productive and wise. And I love it. I love all of those descriptions. I would marry that if I could. But no, that's not my person. I love that to be me, but it's not me. But I have those tendencies in me to desire them. Let's go to the 2. Hello, 2, the helper. We are all here on earth to help others. What on earth the others are here for, I don't know. So 2s are motivated by the need to be loved and valued and to express their positive feelings towards others. Traditionally, society has encouraged 2 qualities in females more than in males. Right? Weak, strong, So 2s at their best are loving, caring, adaptable, insightful, generous, enthusiastic, tuned into how people feel. When they're stressed out, they can become martyr-like, indirect, manipulative, possessive, hysterical, overly accommodating, and overly demonstrative. That's for the more extroverted 2s. That's when they're stressed out. So what my dear friends, do we have to say about our darling twos?
Of course, I know I'm a two, and through my lifetime, one of the things in the Lenten booklet that really struck me as something that happened with me and working with being a two was living inside out. There was a little lesson in the booklet about living inside out or outside in. And when I was very young, I lived two very outside in, living up to the expectation of others, or what I thought was the expectation of others, being very responsible. But as I got older and worked with this to live from the inside out, what was it that I really wanted to do, not what I thought I should do? And life just became so much lighter. It's because I really like being a two. I have a 3 wing, and I love giving parties. And I go, okay, it's, and I won't do what I felt burdened by doing. I just do what I want to do. And guess what? I've had a lot of fun doing it. And I have lots of friends. So, and when I backed off of being responsible and helping people, I don't help people. I've had a lot more people coming since I live inside out instead of outside in, if that makes any sense.
I think that makes a lot of sense, Rosemary. I think one of the things that's such a great blessing about twos is like you said, when you let me just say, when we get used to who we are and when we learn how to love ourselves and take good care of ourselves, I think the thing that's really beautiful about twos is twos always bring a warm welcome to the environment. To be in community with twos, to be in community with ones is to feel raised up in ideals. To be in community with twos is to feel the love and the welcome.
And I have to share with the group, I am so happy. I had my program, 60 people showed up. I don't know how many were on Zoom, but they said, this is the best program we had. And it was so nice. Everyone was so warm and friendly. It was really, and so I just wanted to brag. It was fun.
Oh, Rosemary, that's not a brag. We're all delighted. I know so many of us were praying for you that you would get great joy and you would be a blessing.
I was so nervous about it.
Yes.
And it go. I think that the thing that was amazing, I've had so many comments. It's just, I think some people know how old I am, and they go, it's just amazing that you know all that without notes. I don't know why they don't expect you to be able to think.
There's nothing indirect about what you're sharing.
Huh? What'd you say?
There's nothing indirect about what you're saying.
I didn't.
I'm the worst column.
Rosemary is definitely not indirect. Does anyone else want to say anything about our lovely two side, our really lovely two personality? Any experiences or joys or struggles? All right, we'll move on to 3. The achiever. Work is more fun than fun. 3s are motivated by the need to be productive, achieve success, and avoid failure. At their best, they're optimistic, confident, industrious, efficient, self-propelled, energetic, and practical. When they're stressed out, they're deceptive, narcissistic, pretentious, vain, superficial, vindictive, and overly competitive. The thing about the 2 and the 3 and the way they want to express their love is by doing. if you think about the gift that they bring the gift of making sure things get done. And that translates into wanting to be successful. And that translates into deceptiveness, because you can begin to hide the places where you're vulnerable, because you want everybody to see you as successful and strong and powerful. And you don't want you don't want people to think that you in some way that you'll fail. And the reality is we all fail sometime, don't we? That's just the way life goes. So the threes are a gift in community for us because they make sure we get things done. Does anyone have any three side in them? Yes, Rosemary. Does anyone have three side in them that they'd like to talk about how they've experienced the three? Or do you know anybody that's been a three? Or do you just have anything you'd like to say about our darling threes?
Have a darling daughter who's close to a three, I think.
I'll chime in. I know I didn't walk this journey with all of you, but I do have some experience with the Enneagram. So I'm a one wing too. I'm a self-disclosed one wing too. But what I find very curious, especially in Jackie's just explanation of the threes, like bring the gift of getting things done. Often in community, one of the things that I do with people is we share like the gifts that we bring to each other. You know, we sort of go around the room and write on little sticky notes. And because, you know, I like to remind myself that I have gifts, I save those sticky notes and I put them in a little frame and have them on the window. And one of my dear friends wrote, Maggie brings the gift of getting shit done. and I don't diagnose myself as a three, but I think that my one tendencies manifest in some things that look like they're on the three side.
I'm sure that's true, Maggie. And I think the thing is it doesn't, to say that you're not a three doesn't mean you don't have a high level of three quality in you. That's the thing about what we notice is when we're looking at our tests, we'll have a lot of different high numbers. And so you could have a good dose of, we all have every number in us. We have every trait in us. And so it could be that combined with your one and your two, that's really, because that's a nice little package right there. Could be a strength of a three as well. That getting things, wanting things to succeed. The danger in a deep three is going from wanting things to succeed and getting things done to wanting to have the image of being successful no matter what at any cost. I was telling everybody earlier on, my husband was a three, and how I used to come home, his way of showing me that he loved me was getting things done. And it would drive me crazy because just a lot of reasons about being an 8 and a 3 wanting you to judge that. And the thing that would really it took me a long time to understand, because I'd come home from work or whatever, and he would do something like trim the hedge or something. And he'd say, did you see what I did today? And I wouldn't see it. I'd be like, what? You lived in the house, because I'm an 8. What? You lived in the house and you did it, sure. Big deal. I'd be terrible. And so finally, when I found out that he was a 3 and I understood he wanted to show me what he succeeded at, and that was how he loved me, I started to come home and say, show me what you did today. I'm so glad you did that. Because it helped me to understand him. And I stopped hurting his feelings by saying, yeah, right. You live in the house and you do stuff. Okay, good for you. I was like, I'm an awful human being as an 8, as we all figured out. The 8s are the worst of all. So let's go to the 4. With that being said, the 4 is the romantic. I can stand almost anything except a succession of ordinary days. They love the flair. It's a beautiful thing. 4s are motivated by the need to experience their feelings and to be understood. to search for the meaning of life and to avoid being ordinary. Many, many beautiful artists and of all sorts, creative people of all sorts are fours. At their best, they're warm, compassionate, introspective, expressive, creative, intuitive, supportive, and refined. In their struggle, they can be depressed, self-conscious, guilt-ridden, moralistic, withdrawn, stubborn, moody, and self-absorbed. Anyone here of four that would like to speak a little bit about that experience since they've been studying it in our class? Nancy. You keep your little light over here so people can see the extraordinary Nancy, number four.
When I'm looking at some of the other ones, I say, well, I'm this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah.
But then when I look at this with these two pieces put together, because at the dinner party, when the fellow said something about, caviar, it wasn't, I would never do something. My thought would not be ever to, I'd be happy I had something rather than putting down what somebody was giving me. I would never do that. So these seem to be a lot more in my wheelhouse.
Yeah. That's the work of the Enneagram. It's like none of these are exact, right? We get to the closest one and then we let it unfold for us. So does anyone else have any experience in the four area, that idea of specialist? Yes, Miss Noni. What
Yeah,
would you like to share?
well, the two that stand out to me are introspective and creative.
Mm-hmm.
I got more out of the other book.
Yes.
That's the book that showed me that I was a four. I didn't get it from this book for some reason.
Well, I think this book, and I use this on purpose tonight because it's such a brief outline. I
Yes.
think everything in this book, the sketches and the simplicity of it, they're a good introduction in.
Mhm.
But the Ian Crone's book is far superior in terms of fleshing out for you an understanding of what it means to be who you are. And we're going to talk
Right.
more about those two books at the end too. So yes, trying to get to, I figured today, the reason I did this is because we could get through them all before the end of the hour and we could talk more fleshed out from what we've experienced, but this would just kind of jog the conversation.
Good.
So yes, and a more in-depth investigation, if you can get the feel for it and you get a test and you can take a deeper investigation of it, absolutely, it's going to show you much more clearly the gifts and the challenges of your expression and help you to open up to it. That's so true, Noni.
Yep.
So number 5, the observer. Here we are. Oh, dear Miss Nancy. You can observe a lot just by watching. Yogi Berra. I mean, I love that guy. He has the best things. You can observe a lot just by watching.
Say the obvious.
5s are motivated by the need to know and understand everything, to be self-sufficient, and to avoid looking foolish. At their best, they're analytical, persevering, sensitive, wise, objective, perceptive, and self-contained. In their struggle, they can be intellectually arrogant, stingy, stubborn, distant, critical of others, unassertive, and negative. Anybody have anything they want to say about that?
Well, I'd like to share something that shows how the Enneagram can help in kind of growth areas. That I was doing the receive and release exercise, where on an in-breath you say receive something, God's love or something like that. And the exhale breath, you say release arrogance, say. And I had been saying receive God's spirit, release my anger. And in thinking about how very 5 that was, to be so abstract and kind of possessive of my anger, I rephrased both of them. And the rephrasing has really helped me. And the rephrasing was receive Christ's love. The 5s are in their head space. That's very much in the heart space. And so I was kind of nurturing a part of me that isn't well developed in a 5. And release all fear was letting go of something. And 5s tend to be very acquisitive. And I found the Enneagram has made a huge difference just by that one thing that it had an effect on. So I just wanted to lay that out there in case anybody else found that they could look at how they were approaching various practices and maybe try to draw, like being a head space, I'm trying to get more physically active to draw the gut side in, and I'm trying to get more in touch with my feelings, like they say at the best they're sensitive, to be more in the heart space as well as the head. So that's what I wanted to say about it.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Anyone else want to share? Okay. Let's go to the 6th, the questioner. I developed a new philosophy. I only dread one day at a time. 6s are motivated by the need for security. Phobic 6s are outwardly fearful and seek approval. Counterphobic 6s confront their fear. Both of these aspects can appear in the same person. At their best, they're loyal, likable, caring, warm, compassionate, witty, practical, helpful, and responsible. When they're struggling, they're hypervigilant, controlling, unpredictable, judgmental, paranoid, defensive, rigid, self-defeating, and testy.
Well, we don't have Andy here to beat up on.
I think Roger and I can attest to the fact that this is true. These are true. Andy's almost a pure 6, right, Roger?
He says so, so I'll go with it.
I mean, if we think about his personality, his personality tucks in quite nicely here.
I'll go along with that too. I'll be the 3rd person.
I think the most beautiful thing about the Enneagram, and I know that if Andy was here, he would say the same thing, is that in the journey for healing, when you understand more clearly the patterns of your life and the way you respond, it becomes easier to find your way out of them. And I would say probably for the 6th, when you think about their concern for security, not just their own, but for the people they love and for the world, it is a very arduous way to see the world. And it takes a lot of opening up to get to the place where you can be more at peace and ease to enjoy relationships and experiences while you continue to be an incredibly kind and loyal and caring person. So I really appreciate the personality of the personality qualities of the 6, and appreciate their desire to care and protect and keep safe.
I was married to a 6, and it's probably saved my life. I mean, it was perfect for me. So
No.
I think the two of us, I probably gave him something he needed too. So,
I think that's the beauty of friendships and marriages, right?
yeah, right.
That we do truly give each other things if we'll be open.
Yeah,
to it.
he filled the gap that, the gaps I need and so it was great.
That's wonderful, Rosemary.
72 years,
That's
so,
a beautiful run,
Yeah.
isn't it? You must
Yeah,
miss him a lot.
I do, yeah, but it's no, but I just am so thankful. I just wake up being so thankful and know how blessed it was to have someone like that.
Yes, yes. That's the good place to be, right, Rosemary?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's the good place. The adventurer, number 7. We live only once, but if we work it right, once is enough. 7s are motivated by the need to be happy and plan enjoyable activities to contribute to the world and to avoid suffering and pain. In their best, they're fun-loving, spontaneous, imaginative, productive, enthusiastic, quick, confident, charming, and curious. When they struggle, they're narcissistic. They can be narcissistic, impulsive, unfocused, rebellious, undisciplined, possessive, manic, self-destructive, and restless. 7's my neighbor. I have a lot of 7 in me. 7s have a wonderful. I think that the joy and the adventuresome of a 7 is a wonderful gift. The ability to run after shiny objects a little too frequently can definitely be a challenge. Yeah. Anyone have anything they want to say about a 7? Anybody know a 7?
I know a 7, and she has the best and the longest bucket list, and by darn, she's done almost all of it.
There you go.
She climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. She went to Machu Picchu. She went to Haiti. I mean, she's been everywhere and done everything.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
And Miss Nancy says her daughter Erica is a 7. I can see that. She is the party girl. She likes to bring adventure and excitement to everything she does. It's got its
True.
good side.
Sometimes that's not so good.
And that's the truth. That's why we run a spiritual growth arc.
The interesting thing is that a 5, when they're stressed, goes to a 7. But when I'm stressed, I go to the good side of 7 as much as the bad side of 7.
Mhm.
I start doing every project imaginable and just doing things impulsively. I get enthusiastic about things, but I'm also undisciplined and unfocused. And
There you go.
manic probably to some degree. So it's both aspects.
You know what I like about what we're saying tonight, the things we're talking about? There's a way in which we can welcome all these different parts in ourselves, and we don't have to be like, oh no, I'm like this. We can be more like, I welcome this part of me. I can love and care and nurture this part. I can identify when it's struggling, and I can find a way to open up more in love. I think that's a really great thing. I seem to be hearing that in all of our conversation tonight. That the Enneagram can help us welcome all aspects of ourselves and aspects of others in a compassionate and caring way. So when I say that, before I bring up the asserter,
Remembering to accept the qualities in a loving way, right?
exactly. The asserter, never go to bed mad, stay up and fight. Eights are motivated by the need to be self-reliant, strong, and to avoid feeling weak or dependent. At their best, they're direct, authoritative, loyal, energetic, earthy, protective, and self-confident. At their worst, they're controlling, rebellious, insensitive, domineering, self-centered, skeptical, and aggressive. Since I'm an 8, and I would like to talk a little bit about what I've learned it's so far in the journey. I'm going to therapy every week since David died. I'm seeing somebody to help me work my way through the journey of loss. And as we've been doing the Enneagram, one of the things that kept coming up in our conversation and in my counseling was about being afraid of being weak. And what the struggle for an 8 is that for whatever reasons, our story is that we want to never be weak. And so that means we'll never allow ourselves to be vulnerable. So what that means is we'll never share with people our tender feelings. So as I've looked at that with the 8 and worked on it, one of the things that I've begun to practice to the best of my ability is changing when I want to go, it's okay, everything's fine, to go from it's okay, everything's fine, to, for whatever reason, to being more willing to say, what's the feeling underneath? How am I feeling? And being able to share that with people. So like a quick example of it would be when Paul was coming up to visit, he was supposed to come on Thursday and he couldn't come on Thursday for a billion reasons. Turned out he couldn't even get up here till Saturday afternoon. So when he called me and told me he wasn't coming on Thursday, I was very sad and disappointed that I was only going to get a little time with him and that he probably wouldn't even be able to get to go to church with us. And instead of telling him that I felt sad and disappointed that he wouldn't be able to be with us sooner and that I would miss him and I was so looking forward to seeing him, I just went right to, well, that's all right, Paul, I understand. Why don't you do this? It's so hard. Why don't you just stay home? Because for you to come up for one day, with all the stuff you're going through, I can go to your concert and substitute in for you. And I can do the help that you were going to do at the concert. I can easily go and do that for you. And then you don't have to worry about traveling up here. And I meant that with all sincerity because it's a 6-hour drive. And his car was broken down and Claudia had a root canal and all these millions of things were going on. So I truly meant that I would do that for him and I wanted to do that for him, but it wasn't really okay with me because I was really sad for his challenge. So I just said that in the first phone call, I just said to him that, that's okay, Paul. I can, if you want, think about it, I can cover for you. And then I called him back. And I said, Paul, I neglected to tell you that I'm really sad that your trip needs to be cut so short because I love you so much and I wanted to be able to spend more time with you and Claudia. And I said, I really sincerely mean I want to help you. And if it's best for you not to come, I don't want you to worry. We can take care of it. But I needed to tell you too how much I love you and how much I wish you could come. I never say things like that. You won't see that in me. It's hard for me to practice that stuff. And yet, in the end, I saw how much better Paul felt because I told him. It's hard being an 8.
When you are able to do that, I think it's a gift for the person you say it to.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think you're right, Margie. That's the thing with 8s. We have to learn that that's a gift to give. We have to learn that it's all right. That actually, my counselor gave me this quote. She said, I want you to dwell on this for a little while. That in fact, to be vulnerable is to be courageous. And to be unwilling to be vulnerable at some levels can be cowardice. So that's when you meet an 8 and they're strong and they're aggressive and they're pushing and you don't ever feel the other side of them, that's because they don't want to be vulnerable and they don't want to be weak. And that's one of the biggest lessons that an 8 has to learn. That's really what we need to be with each other. Take the risk. So, anybody have anything that they want to say about the experience of an 8?
What I learned is that on the being a 9, that when I take the good qualities of the 8, that's what helps me become a more healthy, productive person. Instead of going to when I go to the 1 side at my worst, the 8 is actually what gives me my strength to bring out the better part in me, to help make me a stronger, more productive and better person.
Yeah, and when I go to the strong side of the 9, I become more willing to be vulnerable. When I go to 7, I there's other things that go on with 7, but 9 definitely gives me a better quality of sensitivity and vulnerability.
So that's what I really learned out of this, how this whole circle really works together, even though we have every quality in us.
Yeah.
That there's certain traits that we really are interacted with.
Yeah, and they can be, and we can always hone the more positive side. And the more we look at it, like it was really hard for me to when I first started doing it this time around teaching, it was very challenging for me to look at this, like at my reaction to weakness, to really look at it. It's still difficult. That's why I clamped up here a little bit, but it's a good thing. I'm glad to be looking at it. It really is helpful.
And a 2, when I'm stressed, I go to the worst part of 8, and that can be, I can scare people doing that. And I can be very manipulative too, because I can help them till they want to get me out of here. Yeah, it's not nice to have a 2 turn to the worst part of 8.
Yeah, it's certainly not nice for an 8 to turn to the weak part of 8, let me tell you. But actually, Rosemary, the point for me is that when I'm in my best place, I take on the good qualities of the 2.
I know. And I have a lot of friends who are 8s, and for some reason, oh, I don't know.
That's because we need to hang around you.
We need
to rub off on us.
Right.
We need you to rub off on us. All right, let's
Anyway.
get to the 9 before we
I
go
read
here.
that list and I go, oh yeah, I can be like that.
Yeah, I know, that's the thing, that we can all be all these little things. And the point is, that's what I think about why the forgiveness that Jesus teaches us is so beautiful, because when we really rest in the forgiveness, then we can say, yes, I'm like that. and I'm loved and I'm forgiven and I can move to a higher plane because Christ tells us, yes, that's what you are. And I love you and I forgive you and move forward. And that can give us strength and courage to keep growing to the best aspects of who we're each individually and uniquely meant to be. I think that's a beautiful thing. So now poor Miss Diane and who's my, and Kathy, they've waited patiently to the end here because 9s are patient. So let's talk about the 9s. 9s are the peacemakers. I always procrastinate when I get around to it. 9s are motivated by the need to keep peace, to merge with others, and to avoid conflict. Since they especially take on the qualities of the other 8 types, 9s have many variations in their personality, from gentle and mild-mannered to independent and forceful. At their best, they're pleasant, peaceful, generous, patient, receptive, diplomatic, open-minded, and empathetic. At their most struggling level, they can be spaced out, forgetful, stubborn, obsessive, apathetic, passive-aggressive, judgmental, and unassertive. What do you 9 kids want to say about all that?
Well, I know as a 9, I try to make peace with whatever situation I'm in.
You do, thank God for that. Can you imagine if we worked together and you didn't?
But sometimes it doesn't work out though, but I try to make peace with people and be receptive to what they say and, you know, trying to not rock the boat more or less. Sometimes it works for me, sometimes it doesn't, but that's the way I am.
But I think that one of the things I've noticed that all of those good qualities are what make you a good senior warden.
Well, thank you.
Just wanted to put that little 2 cents in.
I appreciate that.
Miss Kathy, you got anything to say about the 9 world?
Well, avoiding conflict is right up there on my high things to do. Sometimes that works. Sometimes I can be diplomatic and, you know, patient and, you know, open-minded, but the avoiding conflict can really get in the way a lot.
Yes, yep, it can it?
Yes, it can.
Yeah. I think that, you know, I want to ask the 2 of you this question because I find being not your neighbor, that I have a lot of this in me and it's difficult in some ways. I mean, in a lot of ways. 9s have a hard time knowing what they want because they let everybody else's priorities take over.
Yeah.
Do you find that to be a struggle for you, that you notice, wait a minute, I just, you know, like I started my day here and I was going to do this and then everybody else's priorities got in and then I didn't, I don't know where I went. Does that ever happen for you as 9s?
Probably every day.
Yeah.
It depends on what's happening. Like for instance, with my brother, since he doesn't have a car and he has, you know, he had cataract surgery, etc. I'm the only one that can take him anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So there are times when I have to give up, even if there's days when I'm not giving up something, I'm giving up time for me to do something else. You know,
Yes, yep.
I
that's
have to
exactly
do
right.
at home. So
Yep.
it's, you know, it's like sort of a two-edged sword. Is I love my brother and I want to help him, but at the same time, I have a list of things I want to do at home. So that's where I get into a problem. But
Yeah.
But at least you have a list of things. That's good. That's what I need to get back to. I used to do
Yes.
that at work all the time, but again, being retired, it's like, oh, who needs a list? I need a list. I need to have something to help me focus back on what I really need to accomplish.
right, and the main thing is you can't lose the list after you make it either. You know, you say, I'm going to put it here so I remember where it is. and then you can't find it. Let's put
Maybe
it
you
this
should
way.
write the list on your bathroom mirror in the morning.
All of that is not unique to nines, you know.
Oh, I know that.
No, we all carry that
But-
around.
But luckily I have a good spiritual advisor who tries to keep me on track. So it helps.
So my darlings, we're at 7-Eleven and I want to do this quick thing with you. I got all the workbooks printed. And the workbooks are pretty intense. You're shaking your head, Rosemary.
I'm just thinking of all that printing. Wow.
Well, I know I took it to Staples. I didn't do it.
Yeah, I know.
I let them do it. But the point I'm making about it is that it is, when I looked at it, I think it's a really good tool for when I looked at it and when I got it printed. It's a good tool, but it's a very reflective tool. And they do it, it's written in a way, because it's the only way you could get the resource. Their site is called Truity, and they tell you that they give you you can get an Enneagram test for free from them, and you can. But basically what it is you do the questionnaire, and I think it's a good questionnaire. And the thing that I like about what it gives you when you're on site for free is it shows you the percentage of each personality type you have within you, and how by the way you answered your questions. And it allows you to see all the different aspects, including what your personality type is. But that's as far as it goes, unless you pay them $20. And if you pay them $20, they give you this really nice long report, which combines all of like Ian Crone's work and Weigel's work and stuff. And it's really done well, but it's $20. And you already have all the information in the books, the two books that we used. You have that information that's already there. So I'm going to tell you that I think that if you want to take the test and pay them the $20, you'd like the material you got, but you don't need to spend that money because you already have information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send these out to you, and I want us to be able to talk about them and see what we want to do with them. So I think we actually need one more class of the Enneagram, so that we can say, like, next week's class is Enneagram, where do we go from here?
Mhm.
And I would invite you all to think about it. Now, the other thing I want to talk to you about is, I apologize for the material, the slowdown in the material that you received, given my state of affairs. But here's the situation. You should all have, by tomorrow, information on every personality type. The first 5, you have only the Weigel stuff. 6, you have the Weigel and the Chronon already, the Corn, or however you say his name. And then 7, 8, and 9, you have only the Corns. You don't have the Weigel one.
We don't have 8 though.
I know, that's because I had like one last thing that I have to send over to Charles, and that's going to get sent to you. That'll be sent to you tonight or tomorrow. Because I finally got it done. So the point I'm making is that these are 2 books that it's probably easier to have the books than for me to go and write more about it, unless you want that, but it's going to take me a long time to get it done. So the best thing that we could do is one of 2 things. The books are on Amazon. You can get them on Amazon if you want them. And the other thing is, and I want to encourage you to get the books. I could order books for you and then send them to you, or I can order the books and have them sent to you if you want. And I could particularly do it for anybody if you want to personally contact me. Scholarship wise, we have funds that if people are challenged at this stage of the game with COVID and everything else going on, that you'd like the books, we can make the books available to you without you having to worry about it. So I just want to just take this last couple minutes to ask you what you would most like to have happen now about the information that I was supplying to you.
Now, Jackie, according to information I have is we also have the Waggle 1 for 7 also.
I don't
So
know if you do or not. I don't know that I can't remember whether I got that one copied. I think I only got to 6. I really
Well,
only think I got to
I
6.
looked through all my information after I took a walk today and 7 was there. So,
Oh, well, that's awesome news. I didn't think I got that one done.
yeah.